In this lecture, you will learn how to use the main string args in your program. You will learn how to create run configurations in Eclipse so you can use these arguments passed into the program. At the end of the lecture, you should understand why arguments are passed, how to pass them using run configurations, and how to refer to the passed arguments in your code. To get further information, you can search the internet for command line arguments in Java. A command line argument is information that directly follows the program's name on the command line when it is executed. In Eclipse, we will use run configurations. It is easy to access the command line arguments inside a Java program. These arguments are stored as strings in the string array passed to the main method. Let's look at an example. If you have a Java program called createPyFile, this program will output payroll data to a file. You want the ability to pass the name of the output file. In this case, we will call it pyinterface.txt. When createPyFile is launched, the runtime system passes in pyinterface.txt as a string array. This example passes only a single string. You separate the arguments or parameters by spaces. Let's take a moment and create this program so we can use it to test passing parameters. Let's create a new project folder, IT 162, call it passing parms with your initials. Create a new Java class. Call this Passing Parms IC1. Go on and select the option to create public static void main and generate comments. That's fine. There we go. Let's take this out. We don't need that one. This looks okay. And remember to always remove the to-do auto-generated method stub. Put something meaningful in this area. So let's say print out the first 2 command line args. So what we're going to do here, let's just do blank line. Remember, this is an array, so we are going to pull the first element. Let's go on and pass 2 in. Go on and borrow this line here. Be sure to replace that with 2 and replace this with 1. And that's pretty much it. So let's go back here. Practice passing parms. Main method. Pass in first name and last name. Something like that. I'm going to save the code. And I am going to run this, and let's watch what happens. Now, you notice we have an array index out of bounds exception. There you go. Why is that? Because I did not pass in a value when I ran this program. All right, let's try this again. You can do this one of 2 ways. You can right-click your code and select Run As, Run Configurations, or you can highlight your main line, which is what I typically do. That's just the way I do it. And I select Run Configurations. Now notice I have the name of my project. I have my main class. I have other classes in here. But right now I want to work with Passing Parms IC1. select the Arguments tab, and type in your first name with a space followed by last name. And let's just click Run. There you go. So let's do this again. Let's right click, Run As, Run Configurations. Once again, be sure you are using the correct class. This is a common mistake, common pitfalls. Select Arguments, and let's take this out. Run it again, and you see what happens. The program made it to this line, line 15, but it tried to access something that doesn't exist. And now we have another issue, index 1 out of bounds. So we need to go back and fix that. One thing you may want to do in your comments, which is very helpful, test this by passing in the following args. Something like this. First name, space, last name. And I'll make you do this in some of your homework assignments. This helps me when I execute your code. I just use the same params that you used in your testing. So it's very helpful. And in the future, when you go back to modify your code, you will remember how you tested it. So let's go on and run this again. I'm going to Run As, Run Configs, Args, and pass it in again. Now notice I can say third param and watch what happens here. Run. Okay. And nothing. Why? I can pass in as many params as I want, but I'm obviously not using them in this code. You don't want to do that. You don't want to pass in something and not use it. So keep that in mind when you start passing params. Let's look at another example. This program loops through the arguments and prints them out. Find the Keep On Moving program on Blackboard and add this to your project. Let's practice using run configurations. I'm going to copy Keep On Moving out of here, and I'm going to select Run As, Run Configurations. Now, notice how this says passing params IC1. Well, that is incorrect. I want to select Keep On Moving. Okay, now when I double click that, it has absolutely nothing as far as the argument. But it will not fail. I'm going to paste Keep On Moving in and run it. So in this case, it is using a for loop and running through that list of args. Just another way to play around with passing parameters. Now remember, we are receiving the arguments in as a string array. To use numeric values, you must convert the incoming parameters to a numeric value. In this example, we are using parseInt to verify the input is numeric. Take a moment to create this program and test the code. Go to Blackboard and refer to passing numbers IC1. Let's scroll through this code and look at it for a second. We have some variables here for calculating hours and overtime. We have an if statement with a try catch of parsing integers. And here's where we do our error message if the first parameter is not a numeric value. Obviously, this is incomplete because I did not do that on the second element in the array. This is for testing purposes only. Also, if I do not pass in any parameters, I catch it with this error message. So let's go out and run it. Run it with nothing. I'm going to select Run As, Run Configurations, And this one is passing numbers IC1. Double click that. Oh, I have something in there. Pay is $22.50. Overtime $375. Argument number 1, 45. Argument number 2, 5. Let's look at that again. And look at the Arguments tab. Notice I have 5 and 45. So let's blank that out and run it again. And here we go. We gracefully ended this program with a nice error message. Let's run it again and type in something like this. A non-numeric. Argument for hours T must be an integer. Let's run it again. So let's say 45 hours, pass in a character of T. There you go. We are using T as some type of reference. We are not doing any numeric calculations on it. So this works in this example. Now let's run it again and break it. There we go. Now we need some type of error message to say you did not pass the second argument or whatever you're looking for in your program. It needs to be more specific in this case, but this is just a template to get you rolling. So go out and change this code around, add some more arguments in there, and see if you can validate all your input. And have fun with this one. You must validate your incoming parameters before you use them. For example, if your program's using an integer, use parseInt to validate the value prior to using it in your calcs. Be sure to do the same thing with other numeric values by using parsefloat, parsedouble, etc. Be sure to create the proper JavaDoc comments. Your arguments should be documented inside your code, and if not, I will deduct points. As a refresher, here's a list of comment JavaDoc tags to use inside your program. To generate your JavaDoc, select Project, Generate JavaDoc. Use the doc folder as your default destination. You can view the JavaDoc by clicking on the index.html page in your doc folder. If you do not reference the correct parameter name in your JavaDoc comments, you will receive a param name not found error message when you go to create the JavaDoc. Be sure to include the correct parameter name in your comments. To view your JavaDoc in the browser, find the index.html file in your project doc folder, right-click it, and select Open with Web Browser. Here is a sample JavaDoc. Take a moment to review the questions on this screen. Now take a moment to review the answers on this screen. To summarize this lecture, you can pass parameters or arguments into your Java programs. In Eclipse, use the run configurations to type in the arguments. These arguments will be passed into your main method as a string array. Be sure to validate the incoming parameters prior to use in your programs. This will avoid programming errors. Always provide proper documentation in your code so your JavaDoc contains useful information. This concludes our lecture. Thanks, and see you next time.